sure it's on silent or turned off. So you can go through, take roll call for us, please.
Councilmember Williams. Reed.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Lawler. Davis.
Here.
French.
Here.
And Mayor Snyder.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve of the agenda?
So move.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this evening we'll start with a presentation from community member Alice. Al, you would like to come forward?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I will be representing the American Legion. So thank you very much for your time this evening. This past spring, I came before you with the idea of your American Legion, Patrick Leo, post 55, undertaking an ambitious plan of revitalizing Barnes Park on the banks of the Kalamazoo River here in Albion as a project of civic pride and involvement in the community. From that moment forward, it grew legs and partners and continued to escalate from there. It was our dream to have the work done by the 4th of July. Well, that didn't happen. What did happen was members of the Legion got together and cleared overgrown brush and invasive trees from the riverbank along the eastern half of the park to give our residents a better view of the fireworks and, as it turned out, better access to the river for fishing. You'll notice pictures going on. Kudos to go out to the Parks Department for hauling away all of the brush the very next morning. It was during this time that Mr. Kevin O'Brien, the Albion Public Services Department, replaced all of the aged grills and trash receptacles in the park. Our wait was over when we received word from the Home Depot in Jackson, whom our service officer, Chuck Savage, works very closely with, that we had been given a grant for the materials and tools to complete the project. So the date was set. Materials would be delivered on the 16th of August, and we would begin working in earnest on the 17th. Early on that beautiful summer's day, the troops assembled. We had our core group of the Legion, many members from Albion Scouting, troops 158B and 158G, along with members of Cub Pack 158, and 2 very gracious and hardworking volunteers from Home Depot. As the 6 old picnic tables were disassembled, the bases were sanded and repainted by scouts, and replacement boards were being cut. At the same time, Legionnaires were clearing the brush and trees from the western half of the riverbank. Albion's Parks Department provided us with the picnic table brown paint so the tables would match the rest of the tables in Albion. Boy, we were off to the races until the rain hit. All hands moved the project indoors at the Legion Hall, where the painting continued by Nancy Greer from Home Depot and our commander, Garrett Hockey, until all were done. That time, a fantastic lunch was served by Adjutant Mike Yost, and that day was done. We returned the following Tuesday, the 22nd, to complete the project. We started assembling the tables with renewed vigor, while young Garrett Hockey took another step toward completing his Eagle Scout project by building and installing 2 permanent park benches within the park. The job was done, mission complete. Barnes Park was no longer the rundown eyesore of the Parks Department. It is now ready to move forward into the future, ready for more improvements and to better serve our community. Can you say gazebo? It is with the greatest expression of gratitude that we thank our members of Post 55, Albion Scouting, the Home Depot, and Albion's Parks Department for all the help and hard work in completing this project. We invite your honor, the mayor, and all members of council, as well as the citizens of Albion, to a rededication and ribbon cutting of Barnes Park 40 years from the first dedication in 1983. The date and time will be announced later. This has changed. So at this time, it is with a great deal of pride that your American Legion, Patrick Leo Hanlon, Post 55, Albion Scouting, and the volunteers from the Home Depot present in return to the council and residents of Albion a completely renewed Lawrence Park. By the way, this was all the brainchild of Chuck Savage.
Need just about 2 minutes.
Come on up.
When my family went to that park a couple of 4th of July ago, and it was in disarray, I said, this is not going to happen again. And with that, I encountered this gentleman who lives up the street from it, goes by it on a regular basis. I said, we are going to change that park. And through his efforts, contact, city manager, and the others, we have managed to accomplish. And I commend all of you for your patience and perseverance on our part to get it done. I said it will not look like this any longer. And fortunately, we were able to get it accomplished. And I thank you again for the patience. Go down there. It is a jewel. It is a beautiful park. You had a lot of money spent 25 years ago to build that. And many of you didn't even know that. But big investment. And not much in investment at this point, this time.
Any questions?
Questions for Al Smith?
I thank you for your time.
Well, Al, we thank you for spearheading this event, the American Legion, the Boy Scouts. Home Depot,
It was a very large contribution by a lot of people.
yes, all the volunteers who helped out. We appreciate that.
Right. Thank you very much.
I'd like to say thank you as well. I've been down there and I've taken pictures of the tables and everything and they look good. So thank you guys for, like she said, heading it up and getting it done.
It was our honor to do so. Thank you very much.
That's what I know.
Public comments at this time. If there's anybody in the gallery that would like to stand and address council, you may do so at this time. Please keep in mind that this is specific to agenda items only. If you would like to come forward, give us your name, address, 3 minutes will be given to you.
Here, I just want to look at it.
Right, not seeing any, we'll move on. In your packets, I'm sorry, do I have a motion to approve of the consent calendar items?
Some move.
In your package, you have the August 21st study session minutes and the August 21st regular session minutes. There is a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the approval of resolution 2023-23. A resolution to approve the project agreement with the MDNR. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the city, we received a grant from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant for the Albion River Trail Expansion 3 project. Our application was approved as submitted in the amount of $300,000 in grant funding with a local match contribution of $188,500 for a total project cost of $488,500. We received the formal project agreement from the MDNR. The city attorney's office has reviewed and finds no issue with the agreement. So it's come before council for formal approval. I believe we have 60 days to get this approved and then submitted back to the DNR. We are in the process of securing grant funding to cover the local match contribution. When we first applied, we did note that we will probably be using some of our next year's county parks millage allocation to go towards this, but there are a lot of grants out there that we can take advantage of. The last River Trail project, there was a local match requirement and we secured a lot of grant funding to cover that as well. So I have hope that we'll be able to do the same for this project. This will not get started until 2025. So we're working with the Whiteman and Associates to finalize the design and get all of our ducks in a row before that time. So we are just recommending approval.
Any questions for City Manager Snyder? City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Reed. Yes. Jackson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
French,
Yeah.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yeah. Next, we have resolution 2023-24 to approve the local match for the FEMA Assistance for Firefighters Grant. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Support.
City Manager Snyder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I announced at the last meeting that the public safety, they secured funding through FEMA's Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus equipment. I know this is included in our current capital improvements plan, and I know Chief Kip has been working hard to secure funding to get this equipment purchased for quite some time now. So we are very happy to receive this grant funding. We were awarded a grant in the amount of $165,954.55 with a required local match of $16,595.45. So we are just bringing this resolution to council to approve us moving forward with committing that local match so that we can relay that info to FEMA and move forward with purchasing equipment. This will come out, the match requirement will come out of public safety's 2023 budget.
Any questions for City Manager Snyder? City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Next is our approval for the Victory Park Playground repairs. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Snyder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, a few months ago, council, I sent out an email to you all. We had an incident where a panel of the playground structure fell on top of a 3-year-old while he was playing. We're at a point where, although it is a beautiful, large structure, it has reached its end of life. It is 20 years old now, and it's become a safety hazard where we need to make some critical repairs to avoid having any future accidents. So we did reach out to a few construction companies to get quotes to do the critical repairs until we can secure funding to fully replace that. We only received one responded to us, WG Construction, for $14,735.31. So when that play structure was first built, there was a fund established at the Community Foundation, the Victory for Kids Fund, I believe it's called. So there is $7,000 in that fund available to put towards this project, and then we will cover the remaining costs from our this year's county parks millage allocation. So we are bringing this quote to you for approval so we can move forward with getting those repairs done to avoid any future accidents.
Any questions or comments? Councilmembers?
Yes, I see this is crucial repairs. After this project is finished, do you think there will be for additional support from the community? I know when the park was built, there was a community day and people came out and donated time and energy and resources. So what the crucial idea, I underlined it crucial because there may be other needs there that this grant doesn't cover or the grants don't cover.
Yeah, so as the city received, we were awarded a Spark grant. So since we were received a Spark grant, that first round, makes us eligible to apply for, they're coming out with an additional Spark grant program. And since we were awarded one, once we are able to apply again.
Okay.
With this, we're working with Whiteman and Associates to develop a proposal for Victory Park. Because right now, McIntosh Park has had a lot of investment. Holland Park has, Barn Park was just revitalized. So we're trying to make sure all areas receive some level of attention. This will be our next big hurdle. Through that grant program, we're looking to completely demolish the current wooden structure. A lot of companies are moving away from the wood, although it's a beautiful play structure. It just is not the best material for prolonged life. So through that grant program, we'll look to redo the playground, the basketball and tennis courts there, the small wooden pavilion, the bathrooms at the band shell, and kind of clump them all together. So we are working to get that proposal prepared, and it'll come before council for approval before we move forward with that.
Any other questions or comments? City Clerk, can we go?
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes,
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Reed, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Next is to approve sending members to the MML Fall Convention. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
support.
City Manager Slater?
Yeah, so this year's MML convention conference will be in Traverse City. This is their annual fall conference. It'll be October 18th through the 20th. Generally, council, you guys appoint a few members to go and attend these conferences. We did have 3 members attend their spring capital conference. I did include a budget report in the packet to show what is available. So it looks like for 2023, under conferences, there was 3,000 budgeted and then another 1,500 budgeted under training. The spring conference was charged to the training fund. So right now that's put us over a little bit. And then we have a little bit was charged to the conference fund as well. So there's 2,905 available in your conference line item within your budget. I would recommend at least 2 members go. Right now, the early bird registration, I believe, is $595. It is set to go up after a week or so. I can't remember the deadline in September. But then we will cover, obviously, you'll need to stay at a hotel. I don't think you'll be driving back and forth from Traverse City, and then we'll cover mileage. So there's enough budgeted for at least 2 members to attend. And this is the last major conference of the year.
Councilman French?
I'd be.
Excuse me, is it time for public comment?
No, sir. We'll let you know when it is.
I would be interested in going.
I was supposed to go, but I wasn't able to go, so if other people, I would be up back.
Did you go to the spring conference?
I went to the fall conference
Not this year,
Yep, she went to the convention last year.
last year,
but not the spring.
not this year, no.
I'm good with that.
So
So
She said she'd be a backup. Somebody else wants
A
to go.
backup?
So she'd be back.
oh, I mean.
So if
I'm
somebody else
happy to
wanted to go.
Since I didn't go to the spring one. But if Councilwoman Davis wants to go, I'm.
Because I know the first person that mentioned was Donald.
Donovan, did you want to go?
I'm interested, but I gotta check my dates, so, work wise, you know what I mean, so. I'm fine with, allowing Ms. Davis the opportunity.
Are we good with that? So allowing Councilman French and Councilwoman Davis to go? Okay, City Clerk, can we go?
Councilmember Davis,
Yes,
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes,
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Yes. Next is to approve the EDC investigation RFP. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
support.
Attorney Hartness?
So I'm this city manager and I both went over this during the study session, but council directed us to compile an RFP for an investigation into the termination of the EDC director. So we designed the scope of work and qualifications tailored to that. We included the project cost cap that council voted on at the last meeting at $10,000. We added standard provisions such as the contractor can't be in default to the city. They have to provide us with proof of malpractice insurance in terms of qualifications. We indicated they need to be a Michigan licensed attorney in good standing who's practiced for at least 10 years with a substantial amount of practice dedicated to the practice of labor law. Per council's direction in the study session, we'll add that to include municipal law. Council had also indicated during the study session that they wanted ethics included, which I'm happy to add to the RFP. I guess my one question to council would be, I know if I was an attorney submitting a proposal for this, I mean, when we talk about ethics, we all kind of in our heads know what that means, but an attorney is going to want an objective standard to evaluate things by. And so in terms of whether there's been a quote unquote ethical violation, what standard are we asking them to evaluate things by? Because the EDC doesn't have an ethics ordinance like the city does. And I don't know that they have a policy to that effect. So I guess I would need direction from council in that regard, because I don't think we can just ask them to say whether or not it's ethical, because it's subjective. You're going to want them to evaluate based on an objective set of criteria.
Councilman Williams.
Yes, as far as ethics go, the board members that we have overseeing these different boards, especially those that we help to fund, the ethics that they should be operating under should be aligned with the ethics that we have to abide by as well, to ensure that all seating board members are doing their due diligence, but also their duty to support that board and the potential outcome in its relation to the people of the city of Albion as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
I can go with that. I mean, because I'm speaking of the same thing, ethic and ethical, so I was really. But I guess I would kind of want to ask you a question when you spoke of, what do they have? Do we need to go over everything that the EDC has on their board as far as hiring, firing, what's at will, what's not at will? Do they have the proper procedures when you're getting ready to let go somebody that you already have all the documentation ready to go? I mean, I can go on and on when you speak of that. That's broad.
Go ahead, Con.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I put in the scope of work, they have to review the articles, the bylaws, basically any other, any of the personnel file, the employment agreement, any applicable policies in place as of the August 10th date. And, as to what Councilman Williamson said, I 100% agree with you. But the problem I think that council's left with is, so the only thing that I'm aware of is in the EDC bylaws, it says if they don't have an employment policy of their own, they default to the city's employment policies and procedures, which we have in a newly adopted and revised manual. But I don't know that that speaks to ethics. The only thing that we have that speaks to ethics is the ethics ordinance. And I don't know, and I don't believe one exists, that anything that the EDC has adopted. So I agree with everything that you said. I think that the EDC should be held to that standard, but I don't know that there's anything in writing in the form of a policy or a resolution or anything that they've adopted to provide that objective standard to say whether or not they complied with it. I think that's the problem that we.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. What about the oath of the office of the EDC?
You could say whether or not they adhere to their oath of office, sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Councilman Williams, in regards to the email that you sent today to City Manager Snyder and City Clerk Domingo about the items that you also wanted to have involved. I made mention in the study session that, item number 4 is in direct contradiction to item number 3. So, and I know you were gonna say something to that effect in the study session, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of give your point.
No, I definitely appreciate, you bringing that up, but we're not at that
Yeah,
juncture yet.
let's say like-
Oh, okay, so this is a different item?
yes, it
Yeah.
is.
So I guess, something else that I brought up in the study session is that the people that were dismissed of their positions, they have no obligation to comply with any investigation since they are volunteers. So we're looking at getting into a contract, spending $10,000. And regardless of what comes out of that, we've still spent $10,000. So I know many of us have been getting complaints about the roads. There's more complaints about the roads, and I just want to make sure that we are all being conscientious of how we're spending taxpayers' dollars. $10,000 can do a lot of repairs to city streets in certain areas. So again, just want to make sure you're good with that. Because I am getting a lot of complaints, and I'm sure you all are getting a lot of complaints about the city streets. So if these members have no obligation to comply with this investigation, what's that money gonna get spent on? Councilman Williams?
I believe this is a investment in the future of Albion to ensure that, anything that's systemic that may be taking place will not be allowed to take place going forward. I believe we owe that much to the city and to those that do business here in the city.
Attorney Hodges?
So I guess just as a matter of practicality, I think realistically, the next agenda item and the current agenda item really should kind of be discussed together, because it doesn't make sense to discuss and approve an RFP and then subsequently in the next agenda item, talk about changes that we want to make to the RFP that we just discussed. So, I mean, I think as a matter of practicality, council can make, have the discussion on both items together because they're part and parcel of the same thing. As far as the RFP itself, I'm happy to craft this in a way that council wants it done. I'm happy to give you advice on and recommendations as to what should and shouldn't be included. But as you go forward, this is something to consider. I agree with Councilman Williamson that in the sense that if there's some. I'm sorry, it has been a long time.
No, I got you. This is the second one I couldn't let that.
I'm sorry. If there's an issue that needs investigation, transparency is paramount. And it's better to know than not know. And if there is an issue, a violation of an ordinance or state law or whatever, absolutely we should know. But I wouldn't be doing a good job as your attorney if I didn't point out the fact that this is a double-edged sword. If you do an investigation and there's not a finding of wrongdoing, that will open the city up to a huge amount of liability in that you have then removed 4 board members and now have a report saying they didn't do anything wrong, which is why normally you do an investigation and then take action based on the investigation. So I'm not trying to dissuade you from conducting your investigation. If the city thinks it's necessary, by all means do it, but I want you to be aware that it is potentially a double-edged sword.
Councilman Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. The board members that were removed from the EDC made a decision to understaff the EDC with no contingency plan in place. The lack of a contingency plan jeopardized numerous numerous projects that they had lined up with no contingency plan, no one to fill that spot, no conversation of filling that spot at all. And that was okay with the EDC board. That was the decision that they made. At a time like this, with every project that we had going on, they decided, you know what, we'll cut staff. With no contingency plan.
So I guess I'll ask, how do you know they didn't have it? Oh,
I know they didn't have a contingency plan because we don't currently have an EDC CEO. We don't currently have anyone leading the EDC. We have,
council removed them before they were able to have their next meeting.
no. You wouldn't terminate or remove someone from a role like that unless they were doing something that adamantly needed that to be done hastily. No one said anything to us about that. No one said any, that hasn't been a discussion. It wasn't a discussion with the rest of the board. Those things weren't. So, no.
Attorney Harkness.
So I need to steer council back. I mean, whether or not the decision to terminate the board members was right or wrong is not the issue before council tonight, okay? The only thing I wanted to point out to the council is the potential. There's both a plus and a potential minus to the investigation. That's the only point I'm making. It's not a matter of whether or not what council did was right or wrong. It's just there's a potential there that council needs to understand when moving forward with this. So aside from the feedback regarding adding municipal experience and complying with the oath of office, were there any other things that council wanted the manager and I to work into the RFP?
I just want to see, I just want to be sure that some people are not being able to put in their recommendations when other people are not. That's why I'm saying that if nobody in council is going to be in on this, then nobody else should either, because it's always been that somebody else has had say so in things that make them come out the way they want. I've been on this board for 12 years and I've seen it and seen it and seen it. And I don't want to see it in this case.
Attorney Harkness.
Yeah, I agree with Councilwoman Reed. You know, to have an objective investigation, nobody should be contacting the investigator. If the investigator needs to talk to people, they can interview people as they deem appropriate, but they shouldn't be contacted by city staff. They shouldn't be contacted by city council members. They shouldn't be contacted by members of the public. That's how you keep it objective. And as a matter of optics for the public, we shouldn't have people contacting the investigator, because the minute you do that, it causes someone's eyebrow to raise. And so to maintain the objectivity and transparency of an investigation, you give them the parameters and you say, go. And then when they finish, they come back and they present the report to the council as a whole, so that everybody gets the same information at the same time. Because the minute that somebody gets information before other people's, that's when suspicions start arising, and then it compromises the integrity of an investigation. And if they need more information during the investigation, they come back to council as a whole. That's the way that it should work. We've done numerous investigations over my 12 years with the city, and that's always how we've done it.
Yes, City Manager Slater.
I just have, is, the items for the next agenda, is this a separate investigation or is this looped into this RFP? Because number, or like the third, or the second focus area, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure how this ties into like the separation of the EDC president or CEO. So I didn't know if, are you looking to have two investigations or include that into this one? The potential legal or ethical conflict surrounding EDC board members' purchase of land in the 425 area.
No, that may very well be a reason for her removal.
So you want investigation on all of that?
I would like to investigate the reason why. Why was she being removed?
Councilman French.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the RFP that presented is broad enough that that those asterisks items that Councilman Williams presented to us would be included in that investigation. Am I missing something here? Or do you not think it's specific enough? My concern is that if we want to know what happens, the 3 bulleted points take a side in the investigation rather than let's have an open investigation. Let the investigator ask all the questions without our influence. And if they discover any of those bulleted points as being factual, that they will be discovered. Because as we said, we want to know what happened. So if there's something going on that at the EDC that we are not aware of, the investigation, I think the language of it is covered. So we don't need to be specific. Likewise, we don't need oversight other than here's the RFP is what we want, this is what you're going to do. Go. So
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
I mean. Colin, give the definition of liaison. Liaison. I'm just saying so that we can get that out, because when say liaison, I'm with French, I'm with Reed, and I'm with Councilman. I think everybody don't understand what liaison can be sometimes. But on top of that, I do believe that we don't want anybody involved, so that no one can say they took this, they did that, but liaison can mean many different things. When you talk about liaison.
The simplest example of a liaison is like a go-between. It's a point of contact between person A and person B, or group A and group B.
Okay.
That's what a
I
liaison.
know then sometimes liaison is just to lead, tell what we want, but as it was stated, we all can do that. We all can be the liaison. Like I'm saying, when I say liaison, not the way you guys are speaking of, but we can be the point person. As you say, when they find information, they bring it back to us and not to 2 or 3 people, but they bring it back to everyone.
I would recommend that as a matter of optics. I think,
Because when they telling me no, that liaison, it means a lot more than that sometimes, so.
yeah,
Yes.
I think as a matter of optics, it's probably in council's best interest not to have it given to 1 or 2 people, but to come to council as a whole so that all the information is presented to everybody at the same time, so that everybody's on the same page. And that way there's not any, like I said, eyebrow raising about, well, did someone have this first? Did someone talk to the investigator first? Rather than even raise an eyebrow of suspicion, it's better to just give it to the council all at once. It can be done in a closed session because it'll be subject to attorney-client privilege. That would be my suggestion.
Councilman French.
I would remove the term liaison entirely, simply because a liaison has an implication that there's contact while the investigation is going on. And I would vote strongly in opposition to that, because again, it's about letting the investigator do their investigation with the absence of influence and just get it done and report at the end. And then it's not a liaison at all. It's just, we're going to mandate that they report back to us in closed session or public session, or as the case may be. So.
Councilman James.
Yes, I'm not sure why we are discussing the next agenda item when we haven't made it through the current agenda item.
Well, Attorney Harkness. has
Trustee
recommended.
Okay, well, I think the conversation is going on a little excessively in terms of the following agenda item, and we haven't quite brought it up to the point of discussion yet.
For 10 minutes.
So I guess in regards to a motion, taken into consideration the concerns. If we do try to approve both at the same, do we want to do separate, or do we want?
Well, I mean, here's I think the easiest way to do this. I mean, I don't think it makes sense to have these as 2 separate agenda items, because you've got agenda item E to approve an RFP, but then in the next agenda, item we got agenda item F to make modifications to an RFP you've just approved. So the way that this makes the most sense is for council to come to a consensus about what they want to include in the RFP, whether it's just the items from agenda item E or to include some or all of the recommendations in like agenda item F and then vote on it as a single item. Because we're talking about one RFP.
You know, as we're discussing this, I think, what do we really want? We want honesty, we want transparency, and we want trust. If we do an RFP that says that this is what we're going for, and all of a sudden we add these other components to it, that means that we don't have trust within ourselves. We don't have trust within our legal system. We don't have trust within anyone. So if we're going through with this in terms of the RFP, I suggest adding the ethical part of it, if that's a area, and let the attorneys do their job. If we're paying someone up to $10,000, we need to trust someone somewhere without, the speculation that wrongdoings are going to happen. So I think we should go with the RFP. We should add the additions that we want to add and then let it go.
Colin?
I mean, take this for what it's worth, Mayor and Council, I don't have any problem adding the additional investigative items that Councilman Williams has suggested. I think there's a potential hurdle with including the term ethical, given that the EDC doesn't have its own variation of that. I think we could, like Councilman Williams indicated, include oath of office because they've got their own oath of office. That's totally fine. But I don't see any issue with including those. I mean, other than the fact that I think there's a broad investigation in the RFP and we've capped it at $10,000. And this is a lot more work. I mean, and I'm gonna not to bash fellow attorneys, but I mean, a lot of times it's about the billable hour. So I'm going to tell you, it's going to go quickly with the additional items, but I don't have a problem including those. As far as the RFP being drafted by the manager and myself and reviewed and revised and approved by council, that's already being done. I mean, we brought it to you guys tonight. Obviously, we're going to add the municipal experience. We've already discussed that, and then as to items 3 and 4, as I've indicated, I mean, I think it should be free of influence from anybody. In fact, one of the things that I would suggest to council is I would put in a provision that whoever bids on this needs to certify as part of their RFP that they haven't been contacted by anybody prior to submission.
Councilwoman Davis?
So are you saying we may not get what we're looking for with the $10,000?
I think you can put it out there. I think it would be unwise to leave, write a blank check, but I'm just looking at this. I mean, I'm fine adding the additional items, but it's expanding the scope of the investigation. And I don't know that $10,000 will do it.
So City Clerk Domingo, who made the original motion?
Jackson.
So Mayor Pro Tem Jackson, I guess you can amend the motion.
To include both.
Well, because
We had your discussion.
yeah, so what I think also part of the discussion is that like items number 4 and 5 in Councilman Williams' email.
Okay, so
Probably be removed.
I think we all agreed on just removing 4. Everything else was supposed to be included.
I think 5 was what we just,
Councilman French.
I think what we said with 5 was that, what those
We said,
3 focus areas. are encompassed in the larger investigation. This is not a singular investigation, should not be a singular investigation on the EDC board members who were let go. It is an investigation as to what happened. So investigating the executive committee of the EDC board as to why they decided to make the decision to terminate the president, as well as underlying factors associated with that decision. They may encompass the three there, but this is not an investigation of the board, it is an investigation of everybody at the EDC.
Because as Mayor Pro Tem Jackson brought up, that she is an at-will employee, so that her termination in and of itself wasn't the crux of the investigation, but the process in which it happened.
Right.
So kind of going with that, this other stuff on 5, it can just be a part of the investigation if it goes to that. But these are things I think you're trying to figure out if they were a part of the reasons for her to be terminated, if I'm reading that correctly.
So my first amendment, I'm gonna let you speak, Colin, but it should go back to him for what he wants on here and what we decided we don't as together. So I'm going to you first, Colin, and then we're gonna go. I wanted it to go right. I've been trying to say that to you for over 10, 15 minutes, and everybody look at me like I'm crazy when I'm asking you to take control.
Okay.
All right?
I meant to, Councilwoman Reed made a point, and I meant to answer it. I think, I'm happy to add as a requirement, and even though, I think anybody who's done this type of work before would do it. If ever, the last time we had an investigation, Attorney Rob Gardner prepared a really thorough report, and he indicated in it everybody that he had interviewed, the specific dates that he interviewed them. I think he even put where he interviewed them. So I mean, that would be an appropriate addition. And I don't think that's an issue to include that.
I haven't amended anything, so let Council Member Williams speak, and then I can go through.
Okay. All right. The number 5, the investigation will focus on 3 areas. For the record, I wouldn't suggest that we print that in the request for proposals. No. And if we're utilizing a law firm who, once we find out the law firm who's meets the qualifications that's putting in on these bids, the one that we're gonna go with, asking the law firm if these certain areas
Can be included as well.
should or should not be included, when, like, if specific areas should be discussed with them, or if they just remain totally objective and then they just go in from scratch, not knowing specifically what their target is. But I also believe that there's a lot inside of those things. There was a lot of contact and questions throughout the tenure of the CEO about different things that had taken place without being able to receive help from the board chairs at the time. What is that called? The executive board? Yeah. And it's hilarious because in the last meeting, they were being referred to as HR, but when there was an HR problem, that CEO had to go outside of that group in order to look for help. So I do believe those focus areas are some that we still need to look at. I don't know what the best laid plan is other than what's on this paper.
Councilman French.
Councilman Williams, your bias is showing. It's clear where you think the ill has been done, and what I'm asking is that we.
As far as with the board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would ask that if we're gonna do a real investigation, we have to be as objective as we possibly can. And what I just heard you say is you've already made up your mind. And what I would like to say is I want an investigator to help me make up my mind. And I think we all need to do that.
Let me speak to your point. I can't speak to anything that I have not already witnessed take place. I won't speak to that. I won't speak to anything other than that. And in attending those meetings, I've seen a lot of things take place that weren't in line with what ethical leadership should be doing. And that's coming out of their mouths, quoting things that had taken place in closed sessions during an open meeting, which I wasn't a part of because I'm not on their board. Literally speaking to things that took place in closed session, names, all of that. I don't know what else to tell you. There is no bias. It's knowledge. It's what has taken place that I've witnessed with my own eyes, that I've actually observed them discussing in public. Unfortunately, they weren't meeting here at the time, so their minutes isn't as well kept as ours. So I can't take away what I've witnessed.
So, I guess to address what Councilman Williams said regarding the item 5 on the email, if the idea is to have the investigator decide whether or not those are relevant and pertinent areas to pursue and not publish those as part of the RFP, my suggestion then would be we add a line under scope of work that basically says perform any other I'm just spitballing here, any other investigation or investigate any other area potentially related to the termination of the CEO, something broad enough that would be able to encompass those areas that, if we, you hire an investigator and you have your first closed session with him to discuss it. And, at that point you could say, hey, obviously we had this other line under our scope of work. Do you think that these 3 items would be pertinent to pursue? If he says yes, there you go. If he says no, there you go. But at least that way, if the idea is to not publish it, then I would do that. That would be my suggestion.
But who would convey that message, that line? Who would convey that message?
So we would put that generalized line in the RFP, and then when the council meets with the investigator, you can clarify those 3 points of concern and say, do you think these are things we should look at? Yes or no?
And you said the council.
Right.
Behind closed doors.
We'd meet with council as a whole behind closed doors.
So if you're meeting with an attorney regarding, a legal issue, if it's in a written opinion, you can go into a closed meeting and there's a variety of ways to get you there. So you would be able to meet with your attorney regarding a legal matter in closed session.
And we wouldn't have to take a vote on the things that were being suggested that he investigate.
So that's why I suggest including a line item broad enough that it would already encompass that. You're not increasing or decreasing the scope of work, so to speak. You're saying, do you think these are things that we should also look at? Now the attorney may say, you know what, this is broader than what the RFP really encompasses. I'm going to need more money, and that may be something that we'll need to discuss at that point in an open session. But whether or not you cross that bridge when you come to it. But that's my suggestion. If you're looking to not put those in the RFP, that would be my suggestion. If you want them in the RFP, that's fine. We'll just put them in the RFP.
Councilor David.
If we put them in the RFP, for my own clarification, what are the 3 areas we're going to specifically focus on?
Are you asking me or are you asking Councilman Williams?
Okay, which areas are?
Those areas didn't lose their validity in this conversation. So the hiring, the working environment. And the termination. I believe it was said that the role was filled for 10 months, nearly 10 to 12 almost.
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
Yes, I just like to go back with, Councilmember French has said. Maybe you didn't remember, but you said that everything on the sheet was okay except, the liaison. And now we're going back and forth over what you didn't like. Yeah, if you go back and listen to what you said. You spoke and said that if we're gonna do an investigation, you would agree with those things being, yes, into that full investigation. So I'm just saying we're going over and over, and I think we need to pause and stop. Because he already said if we do have to go, which we will, go behind closed door, then we can add those things that need to be added. It's like we just giving out everything, so what can happen, I don't know, but I think we need to move on. We've been on this over 10-15 minutes. We need to make an approval on what we want to go into that RFP.
Councilman French.
No, I'm sorry, it was just,
Attorney Hartness.
So this may make things more succinct, and maybe this will be a happy medium for council. So here's my suggestion. If we're looking at the termination, the hiring, and the working conditions of the EDC director, we could change the background and things like, and the related portions here to say, we're hiring a third-party investigator to determine whether or not the hiring, working conditions, and the termination of the former EDC president were legal under Michigan law, consistent with the EDC bylaws and articles of incorporation, and consistent with the director's oath of office.
Okay, but I gotta raise a concern as well. And you may wanna, I don't know, did y'all all get that?
Yeah, I have a concern, maybe.
I didn't wanna jump in before everybody got,
One concern on that word.
you got a concern on what he said?
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna see if it's the same word. Because I already spoke.
I'm not speaking of that.
Okay, I mean, I already spoke to you about that word of it being basically legal. Remember, I spoke of that. We already know that it is legal. So make sure I understand what you're saying when you say
Well,
that.
so we're not just talking about. There's more to the legal aspect of this other than the termination of an at-will employee. When we talked about this, when council talked about this at the meeting where you authorize ARP, one of the concerns that was raised is by way of example, whether or not there had been an Open Meetings Act violation and things like that. So when we say whether or not it's legal, it's not just, yes, can they fire an at-will employee? Of course they can. But in doing so, did they violate the Open Meetings Act?
Okay,
In doing so, did they terminate her because she's a female?
okay,
Things like that. So
what
it's
you're saying.
it's a broader,
okay,
know.
thank you.
sure.
That was my concern.
Now, as that reads with the additions that you just listed, does that cover her concern in its totality?
In terms of,
In terms of what she was just concerned about as far as the legal being in there.
yeah, because we're not just talking about, like I said, we're not just talking about the termination. We're, in terms of, by way of example, the item in number 5 here that talks about the hiring, we could say the hiring process, whether or not that was legal. We could, because it's going to encompass more than just the at-will concept.
Okay, I'd also just like to make the clarification that we have a board member as a part of council. And how would you suggest handling that as well? Especially when meeting, if the council as a whole meets with the investigator and a member of the board is a part of that meeting, there seems to be a conflict there, potentially. So to keep there from being a conflict, that's why the 3 members were suggested as basically a subcommittee. So under the thought that you're having, how do we then handle that scenario?
My suggestion would be you inform the investigator that a current member of council, and we don't have to, we know it's our mayor is also a board member, is a current member of the EDC and was a member that participated in that vote. And you, because he's going to be the one quarterbacking the investigation, you take direction from your investigator and say, at this point, should we have the mayor step out because there's a conflict? Or if he says, no, this won't affect my investigation and how we proceed, there you go. If it were me, I would probably in that scenario say, hey, it would be in the best interest for the mayor to step out.
Any other question or comment?
Yeah, I got a quick question. In that same scenario, everything discussed in that room, you say it falls under attorney-client privilege?
Yeah, all you would need is a written memo to get into a closed session for attorney-client privilege.
Okay, and if just so happens randomly somehow, things discussed in that meeting or private personal information is leaked, then someone would, what's the repercussion for that? Because I know a lot of things are being said here lately in town that, we haven't discussed up here, but it's ending up in different, outlets.
If a member of council or a member of the city staff discloses conversations that occur in a closed session, that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act and has both the potential for civil and criminal penalties.
Okay, perfect. All right, so can we do a quick recap, see where we're at?
Okay, so here's what I have, and council, please correct me if I'm missing something. So we're going to add to that the investigation is going to include the hiring process, working conditions, and termination to determine whether or not they were legal under Michigan law, consistent with the EDC bylaws and the Articles of Incorporation and the EDC board members' oath of office. The experience, the qualifications, they'll also need to have municipal experience. We'll have them, we'll also add to the scope of work, a review of the oath of office. And as it relates to working conditions, I guess we'll have to add any complaints, but those should be part of the personnel file, but I'll add them just for specificity. And that's what I've got added. And, oh, I'm sorry, and they'll include in their written report, everyone that has been interviewed or contacted by the investigator. And probably ask them to certify that they haven't been contacted by anybody prior to their submission of the RFP. Does that work for everybody?
That last part, can you repeat that?
That they'll certify as part of their application that they haven't been contacted by anybody prior to their submission of their bid for the RFP.
Okay, and can I also suggest that we use a firm that we don't currently have a relationship with?
Yeah, I mean, the only firms that you have a current relationship with are myself, the
Labor attorney.
I'm Greg Schultz, Keller Toma is our labor counsel. We technically have an environmental attorney, but we haven't done anything with them in a couple of years. So if you mean somebody that we haven't used in the past, we can certainly include that, but those are the only firms that there's a relationship with.
In the previous meeting, one of the previous meetings you made reference to, well, we used so-and-so in the past,
Mhm.
or we use, what I'm suggesting at this time is that we utilize someone that we have zero relationship with.
Yeah, that's fine. We can say that they haven't previously contracted with the city or something to that effect.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So do we need to have Mayor Pro Tem Jackson amend her motion?
So we had a motion to, I mean, maybe this will be just easier. We had a motion to approve in a second. Why don't we do, and it was to approve the RFP, why don't you do motion to amend to include the changes I just presented? Somebody second that, vote on that, and then vote on the main, everything going to trying to amend.
Okay, a motion to amend the changes that were just made.
Second,
Okay, second it. 2 seconds.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes,
Reed,
yes,
Jackson,
Yes,
and Mayor Snyder.
No. Right, next is our,
You've got the main motion.
what was that?
That was just the amendment. Now you have the main motion.
Now we have the main motion to approve the RFP.
so move.
support.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes,
Reed,
yes,
Jackson,
Yes,
Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
No. Next is our discussion on the EDC board applications, and Mayor Pro Tem Jackson has this on the agenda.
yes, kind of, I mean, yes, I do have it on the agenda. I wanted to know how we were going about with the EDC board applications that we've already had in the past. And how you're, I guess, how you're going forward with those, but then also there was a question raised and I couldn't use my phone, so I wrote it down with the Attorney Nelson. When a question was asked of how are the applications approved through the city council? And he basically alluded or basically just kind of commented, he didn't sit there and read it. But he was saying that the EDC board applications basically were done with and advised through the city council. So we know you give them and then that, so do you look through all of them and then you just decide what to bring to the council? Or is the council being has a chance to look at all of them?
So what happens is when we get applications, they go to the city manager,
Mhm.
they go through the vetting process. If I'm correct in that,
Goes to the clerk's office.
I'm sorry, clerk's office. And if they're good through the vetting office, then she notifies me of them.
Okay, all right, because I know there's 4, empty seats and they're continuing to ask us what you're doing and how we're gonna go about filling those seats. They do have a quorum, but they still need those seats filled as well. And I know we have someone that's here today in the audience. I know his application has been in for quite some time. And I know we would love to sit here and say, where is it at, if it's standing and all those good things. So I'm hoping you're able to give some word to that, maybe not tonight or when you can. But do we have any more applications, Jill, that have come through for the EDC board? Okay, how long has that site been up? I'm putting this on, make sure everybody sees on YouTube, because that's all we could hear was that the site was down and no one could get to the site. And so I wanted to make sure before I came in here today if the site was up. And the site was up, so I don't know how long it's been up.
I think people have gotten other old links that are being passed around.
Okay,
Go to the city's website, the application is available on the city's website.
okay, all right, I just want to make sure they hear that, because a lot of people do come back and listen to what we're talking about to see if we brought what they have asked to the council. So, okay, I hear that part. All right, so that was my concern. I'm quite sure somebody else has something they want to ask about the EDC board applications.
so it's on the city website, because I had someone call me and asked me how they apply. And I came down here and told them what was, if someone wanted to apply. And they said, look on the city website, but the person told me they couldn't find it, but that's been over a week and a half ago, so maybe that's why.
But when you go
It
to the
should be on
website,
there now.
there's a button right on the main screen that you click and it takes you right to it.
Is there a time frame that these are supposed to be responded to within?
No,
Yes, me?
Yeah.
No. There's not a deadline for appointment. I mean,
So may-
obviously, in an ideal world. There would be appointments because there's terms. But there's not a time frame. If somebody applies, I mean, we've had people that have applied and obviously never been appointed, but. There's not a time frame.
But there's some processes that you do have to go through. I'm sorry, Mayor. They have to go through some background checks, but those processes have to take place. Okay.
Right, like the city did, one of the primary things the city does is. We check to see if you're in default with the city because you can't serve on a city board if you owe the city money. Another thing is. Several of the boards, the majority of the boards have certain requirements like residency requirements, and we've had applications from people that. Don't live in the city, so you can't, like, by way of example, somebody will apply for the. Board of review, well, you can't do the board of review unless you're a taxpayer in the city, so.
So are you saying within 30 days time, you couldn't find all that out?
Oh, no, yeah, no, absolutely, oh, the background, yeah.
So then a person should be notified at least within 30 days whether or not they're going to be placed on a board.
I don't know if the city does that.
It's a lot, we don't. Is there anything else that you have in that vetting process?
Other than qualification, I mean. Oh,
It's like an actual background?
Actual background.
Councilman French.
so, we're all not saying it, so I'll say it. The mayor, it is the mayor's prerogative and discretion to appoint members of the boards. That is the one thing that they get. So
That's lack of discretion or anything if you wait
No.
up 9 months.
I'm just stating the role of the mayor as listed in our charter, that it is at the mayor's discretion to appoint members to boards. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm telling you. That's,
I mean. I thought
So
you
Mayor,
answered
how
that.
long do you think it should take to notify a person whether or not they have been selected to be on a board?
Well, unfortunately, right now, there's a lot of turmoil around the EDC board. Attorney Harkness has all sent us notification that the city is going to be sued. Currently, the former CEO is being allegedly criminally investigated. And so I understand, but there's a lot of things that need to get settled and put in place.
So right now we're defunct. We're not functioning at all.
No, they have quorum.
Well, there was a $20,000, a $200,000 grant you wrote for McIntosh Park. I keep trying to check to find out. Who knows if it's came in or what's happening there? And I can't get nothing because
Don't
nobody.
go on into Sept. Got my name involved in all that.
Well, Lindsay Rourke is still working. She's still there. Lindsay Rourke.
I've called several times. Not nobody.
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
Yeah, question for you, Attorney Hartnett. She said that we were about to be sued. I need the correct language on this, because I know what the papers are saying. I know
So-
what City Watch is being saying. But I need to hear this from you, because I've seen that, because I've heard and found some things, like, sometimes you get a dig on your own to find out if you're really
Sure.
being sued, because nobody's really telling the truth. So
So-
can you please?
Sure. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into what information I provided counsel in my legal memo, which is subject to attorney-client privilege, but everyone has heard a rumor that one of the former EDC board members is going to sue the city. As of today, nothing has been filed.
Thank you.
I did have a conversation with his attorney that drafted the letter that was provided to all the council members. And my understanding was that she would extend me the professional courtesy of notifying me if something was going to be forthcoming. As of today's date, nothing has, she hasn't contacted me.
Thank
So
you.
as far as I'm aware, nothing has occurred yet. Whether or not something happens in the future is
That's
to be
that,
determined.
right. I'm saying that's relevant. I like to know the true facts.
You will, if something is filed and I'm presented with it, the council will be the first to know.
Thank you, because you know, when a lot of things come to your email and they have you included in something, it's like, seriously, must be a lot more going on than I know. Because my name is involved in stuff that I don't even conversate with, people I don't even conversate with. So I thank you for that. Thank you for being honest. Thank you so much.
Councilman Williams.
Yes, I also heard reference, to a criminal investigation. And so that we're not coming in here and repeating hearsay, Attorney Harkness, have you actually reviewed a report or any documentation that supports that a actual criminal investigation is taking place in regards to an employee of the EDC?
So there, obviously, council received an email from me, which I won't disclose the contents of because it's subject to attorney-client privilege. But information was provided to the Albion Department of Public Safety that was subsequently provided to the Michigan State Police. Additional information that came from the former EDC director was also forwarded to the Michigan State Police. It is my understanding that the Michigan State Police are conducting an investigation. What the status of that investigation is, I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm not involved in it. If and when they decide to recommend charges to the county prosecutor, that's between them and the county prosecutor. But it is my understanding that the state police are conducting an investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, future agenda items. Anything we'd like to see and that's coming?
All right,
Councilman French.
yeah, I would be bringing not a resolution, but a proclamation of, now I can't check my email. I just got an email today asking to craft a proclamation declaring the 15th anniversary of, we did it 5 years ago on council. Let me check my email. Oh, yeah, Healthy Baby Day. It's the 15th year of Healthy Baby Day. And so I've been asked to bring that proclamation to our next council meeting. So I'll be doing that.
Anything else?
Yes. Sorry. I know we've had this discussion quite a bit, but I know oftentimes the feedback that I get from members of the community when they come up here to speak is that they don't receive a response. There's like, they come up, answer or ask questions during the public comment section, but don't necessarily receive a response. Like I said, I know we've had this discussion before. I can't remember what the outcome of the, that conversation was. But if we could look at, maybe adding it to the link for that meeting or a comment section somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, if we can figure out a way to answer the question so that when someone comes up here, they know they're not going to get their response today, but they can expect it within that week. You know what I mean? And it could be on the city website or however we feel the best way to do it. I'm not exactly sure. But, as best we can, I believe we owe it to the public to make sure that we respond to them as best we can when they have questions and take the time out of their day to come down here.
So do not council members follow up with the people in your precinct to make public comment?
I do.
I do.
You do? Okay. Some of the questions I know that we have I know we don't necessarily have the answers to those questions, so I'm not sure, but if we can come up with something as a way to.
Yeah, I know folks ask city manager or attorney Harkness for a response and get back with them. Attorney Harkness.
On that note, I've been getting calls at my office from citizens that are telling me that council members are sending them to me, just so council is aware, I can't give the public legal advice. I don't represent them. I represent the city. And so, and frequently these individuals are on the opposite side of the fence of an issue with the city. So please don't send them to me. They have a legal issue. They need to talk to their own attorney.
Any other, yeah,
Yeah, I know we were talking about the ordinance for residents in the block parties. We're supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm working on it. I will follow Attorney Harkness to prepare something.
Okay, thank you.
anything else?
I was just gonna say, after Councilwoman Jackson brought that up, I did find some samples that we can, from some other municipalities that might be good to draw from, so I'll get those to you for.
So I've received numerous complaints from folks who live near the park, Victory Park, about noise. And we fill out a form if you want to reserve, and if you're going to use amplified sound.
Right.
We have to approve that. The problem that we're getting is that we've got people, especially people who have doorless Jeeps, who have amazing sound systems, who officially don't need approval because it's not amplified sound as defined by our city permitting point, that are excessively loud. So is there a way on that form to define amplified sound? Is anything that requires any kind of electronic amplification, whether it's using a car stereo system that's like the bomb, or speakers and a mixer or whatever?
I got something for you. We discussed that. You may not remember, we discussed that, and amplified sound was any sound that was played through, he'll get the verbiage, but it meets the requirement for amplified sound.
Okay, so then we need to, yeah, if we can,
Is that an order?
because when people have addressed those individuals who are amplifying your sound, they don't necessarily trust what we're saying when we say, this is amplified sound. No, it's not. I don't have a speaker system. Well, you do. It's in a car, but
Yeah.
We do have an ordinance that already addresses, it's under our, oddly enough, it's under our environment chapter, but it deals with, one of the things that it references is radios. And to that effect, it says the using, operating, or permitting to be played or use any radio, receiving set, stereo, musical instrument, phonograph, or other machine or device for the producing or reproducing of sound in such a manner so it is plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the building, structure, or vehicle in which it is located. That would be a violation of the ordinance, and it is a civil infraction.
so we can tell our public safety officers to start writing tickets.
Yes.
Because what do you do? Up and down my street. There will come 4 cars, one right after the other, just blaring. And then they'll go down and they'll go around and come back down there, just blaring. And no police are around. So nothing gets done. Those things that you're talking about, do they pick up sound?
And people tend to turn the radio down when it started to near. So it's difficult to report.
Get your foot cops on.
What a video.
Video.
oh,
So to Chief Kip's point, normally that's true. A police officer has to observe a civil infraction. Or they can submit a request to me to authorize the issuance of a civil infraction if I think sufficient evidence is there, if they haven't observed it. So if I get like witness statements. And Chief Kip's guys are savvy enough where if they're writing somebody several times, you know, the card we have in our back pocket is, you know, if a civil infraction isn't working, we do have a misdemeanor for disturbing the peace. So if it's a persistent issue, we can start using a criminal charge if it's, you know, we've got somebody that's continually doing it.
Thank you.
Any other agenda items? All right, public comment. At this time, if there's anybody in the gallery that would like to stand and address council, you may do so at this time. To state your name, address, and 3 minutes is yours. Now is the time for public comment.
Hi, my name is John Duncan. I'm here to talk about the abandonment of houses that's in Albion. Albion is supposed to check meters, which it doesn't seem like they're checking meters because people are moving in abandoned houses. The cat problem was taken care of in our area. The cat problem is back. The cat problem is back. The mice is back. The coons are back. They're back because Albion don't do their job. This is ridiculous that people are moving in abandoned houses. These kids are staying here. You say you care about lead poison and all of this, but it never makes it to the agenda. Who's responsible for these kids? Who's responsible for the people in Albion? Who's responsible for the water? Who's responsible for the meters? Who's responsible for the people? Albion. This is sad that everybody sits up here and know about all these bad meters, condemned houses, but it's more important stuff. You guys ought to be ashamed. Thank you.
Anyone else like to stand in address council?
Anybody else?
Been very conscientious of time. You have 3 minutes, don't you?
Yep, just give us your name and your
So
address.
somebody will
If
be sure to let me know at 2.5 minutes. My name is Fred Raisty. I spoke to you 2 weeks ago about,
Mr. Race, can you give us your address?
my address is 912 in North Eaton. I'm not sure which one is my council person, but maybe we'll meet afterwards. I'm at 912 North Eaton. I talked about effectuating majority rights and protecting effectuating majority rule and protecting minority rights. Well, that's a great idea, but how do you do that in real life? Here's an example. I brought this tomato. It looks good to a lot of you. So if I said, let's just vote on that tomato, maybe 90% will vote yes, but one person might say no. What about that person? What do they do? Well, they could say point of order. That's the legal way. What they're saying is, we can't vote on this unless the chair makes that decision. Because that decision is not made by majority rule. So that's the first thing that could happen. When you had a situation you had a couple of weeks ago, where somebody wanted to go into private session and nobody seemed to be doing it too well, it should be directed to the chair. Could say point of order, it could say it many other ways, but the point's the same. The fact is, we have rules, that's a point of order, and we want to make sure that rules enforced. Second thing is, people can change their minds. And just because you vote one way doesn't mean you can't reconsider. When do you reconsider? You can reconsider all the time, as long as there's not been some kind of real prejudicial change. Then you can't reconsider so easily. But seems to me there's some issues that have been dealt here that really should be done within the private sector. But who can make the decision to reconsider? It has to come from that majority. So if this council was 3 one way and 4 another, three were on the negative side and they asked for a point of order and they didn't get it. And then the other side changed their mind. Well, they can't do it again because they went through. But what somebody on the majority side could say, you know, we should do this in private session. Let's go back and do this in private session. Now, I think the newspaper got an interesting article about Mr. Haas.
30 seconds.
And I don't know who Mr. Haas is. Maybe he's here, maybe he's not. But the point is, he was saying, change it. You know, and go to the attorney. And so I suggest that's an issue. You don't have to have an investigator for that. You just go back into your private session. Thank you for the time. Now let's hear it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathaniel Bogan and I live at 1006 Fair Lane Drive here in Albion. And I'd like to first just extend a compliment to you guys as far as the hard work that you have to do here. I know what you're dealing with is not an easy task. I don't think people understand that you're overworked and underpaid. And there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration when you're trying to make these decisions. So I know you don't take them lightly. My concern tonight is I just want a general idea about the process, because I've raised this issue before about, I talked to Jill because I'm one of the applicants on the EDC. And I think I turned in my application sometime in July, early July, I believe. And Jill, I talked to you and you said that it's on the mayor's desk. So I'm just trying to understand the process really. And from what I heard in one of the other meetings is that you make the recommendation at your discretion, because that's your call. And it's given to the council. So it's, you nominate people because the council really has to approve them. So if the council doesn't approve them, then that person is going to be rejected. So I just trying to learn the process that goes on and kind of like, is there any general timetable that it takes for a decision to be made regarding an applicant? So that was my concern. Thank you.
Esther McGeer, 805 Huntington Boulevard, Albion, Michigan. I still have not, nobody's contacted me about where the taxes, my taxes that I pay, where the money's going to, that you don't have enough money to do anything with the streets. Nobody's contacted me. Nobody's given me an answer. I just need an answer as to why. The other thing I want to know why is why we have eaten rabbits collecting taxes for us. How come we can't hire somebody with the city to do our taxes? We get, I got clients calling me, contacting me because there's a tax problem. You have to contact Eaton Rabbits. I'm not telling my clients to go to Eaton Rabbits because Albion is here. This is City Hall. They should be able to come here and get an answer. So I need some answers. Bottom line, need some answers.
Good evening. My name is Tracy K. Talbert. I live at 558 Riley Street in Lansing, Michigan. I own property at 618 Austin Ave. I've spoke several times here. I've been coming down quite a few of the meetings that we've been having. And I was echoing what Mr. Bogan was saying about the way that the position is filled for the AEDC board. So I'm just trying to get an understanding of how it works, because I still am not clear. The way I heard it, and I don't know if it's exactly how it goes. One, it goes to the mayor, the city attorney, and the city clerk. And then they have to also have a background check. And then it is totally up to the mayor. Is that how it goes? Whether it goes to the city council to vote on it? I just want to understand the process. because I know I heard that there's been a lot of turmoil going on right now. And that's why there's not been anyone sent to the AEDC board. But how long has there been a vacancy? And how long has it been for someone to get that out so that somebody can be put on the board? I'd like to have that information. The other thing is, we spoke about the AEDC and who is in charge right now and not being able to get any answers. But then it was mentioned that Lindsay Rourke is the one that's handling it right now. I spoke with Lindsay and we are going to be meeting. However, she basically doesn't have any information on what I've been working with the ADC for over a year now. So it's a stumbling block by not having anybody in that position. I hope you guys can do something to address that real soon. So that's my conversation right now. Thank you.
Charmaine Bogan, 1006 Fairlane Drive. So I have one concern about, I'm right across the street from Victory Park, and the front of my house looks like a jungle. Now, I went to the meeting at the Ludington when Whiteman and whoever else was there saying that they were going to pave Haven Road and they were going to start in June. So it's just a jungle over there. Then on top of that, whoever does the signage, street signs for Albion spelled my street wrong. Now, I don't know how you can leave the I out of Fair Lane and make it 4 lane. Is it 4 lane? Far lane, right. So, you know, that's an issue. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to make a sign. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I know that it was said that you're not going to be biased. Well, in this world, it's hard to not be biased on some issues, really on every issue. There's always going to be a pro and a con. That's in world events, politics, church, husband and wife. There's always going to be a pro and a con. You're not always going to agree. But if the mayor is the one that looks at the applicants, and then you take those applicants back to the council, how do we know that you're not biased? Because I don't think, just from coming to these meetings, I see bias here. So I'm not accusing you of being biased, but I'm just bringing it up that how do we know that you're not going to be biased? I'm not tooting my husband's horn, but he has been on 3 city board of trust, and something else, and now this. And yet his application is still sitting on the desk. He's more than qualified to do the job. But how do I know that you're not biased? If you look at those applications yourself first, and then you make the decision, and then if you bring it to the board, I may be wrong. Does the board vote on your decision? So let's just say you've got 10 applications and you filter through those, and then 5 of those you say, yep, those are good people. I'm going to send it to the board. Well, maybe you were biased in your decision making of who should be voted on. And that's all I have to say. Would anybody else like to stand and address council? Council member comments. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, your report.
City
City
manager.
manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. A copy of my report was included in the packet. Just want to highlight the McIntosh splash pad is scheduled to close down for the season this week. We did decide to keep it open today, and it will be open again tomorrow. It is going to be another hot day, so take advantage of the last day of the splash pad. It's closed for the seasons on Thursday. The Haven Road and River Street project. So we have had some issues with getting that project completed. We received notice from consumers on August 18th that they have resolved all of the easement and tree issues. The order for work has been sent to construction. They don't have an exact schedule, but the job is moving forward and crews should be on site soon. We continue to check in with them every other day if they have an update on where they stand with that project. But that is the holdup, and then the contractor will come back on site and pave that final layer of asphalt. Just wanted, we had the kickoff meeting for the capital improvements plan update. It was held Monday, August 28th. The subcommittee met with the different department heads and we reviewed the current CIP and discussed completed projects from that list. And then we started brainstorming on future projects. So looking forward to getting that done. And then this is a good one that I wanted to share. So MISTA, they announced last Tuesday that there's $20 million in funding available through HUD. CDBG program for the creation of housing activities that benefit low and moderate income households. So 2 activity types are eligible for funding: homeowner rehabilitation to preserve affordable housing units, and demolition/reconstruction or resale to remove blight and create single family housing in communities. So MISTA is currently accepting letters of intent for their chill program. That's what this program is called. The letters will establish a pool of eligible applicants who then will be requested to submit a full application. I believe the max amount someone can apply for is $40,000. This could go a long way for homeowners to apply for this program. We do intend to submit a letter of intent because it is one of the council goals for this year to help homeowners address their properties and get them up to where they need to be. So the letters of intent are due Monday, September 25th. So we were working to review all the parameters for this program and make sure that we get a letter submitted. Included in the packet was the September issue of the Naturally Connected newsletter. And that's all I have.
Quick question
Yep, that's what we.
about the MISTA housing. Excuse me. Is that one of those things we apply for and then structurally put the plan together later?
So we wouldn't, we would apply for it, but then if we secure funding through that, I believe residents would then have to apply for that. So
Residents would apply.
yeah, it's nothing that we would determine how these funds are used. This is a program available to property owners to do improvements to their homes.
Okay, that's perfect. Perfect. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions for City Manager Slater? All right, council member comments.
Oh,
We just did.
Madam Mayor, just want to make an initial announcement regarding precinct 5 meeting. We're going to have a first fall meeting at the Albion Marshall Opportunity School, and that's going to be on the 21st of September at 6 o'clock. And we have some guests that are coming regarding neighborhood safety and updates regarding what is happening in the community in city government.
You said at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m., yes. And postcards are going out to all of, I have the addresses, so postcards are going out to all of the residents of precinct 5 as well as media coverage.
Any other council member comments?
As a reminder, the next meeting, there will not be a study session at 6 o'clock. We have the event with the system city delegation.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned, 8:46 p.m.